Did you know that Africa's economy is worth 3 trillion? But that incredible figure hides a complex story of trade, extraction, and resilience. This is the story of African economics, visualized. We'll trace the continent's economic journey from its pre-colonial roots to today's challenges and opportunities. Forget simple narratives of poverty and dependence. Prepare to discover the surprising economic forces that have shaped Africa. Before European arrival, Africa wasn't a blank slate. Sophisticated trade networks crisscrossed the continent. Gold from West Africa fueled empires. Copper from Central Africa powered innovation. The Kingdom of Aksum, with its Red Sea ports, traded with the Roman world and beyond. Great Zimbabwe controlled trade routes for gold and other resources. These weren't isolated pockets of wealth. They were interconnected systems, with long-lasting influence. But these systems were far from perfect. State centralization, or its absence, played a huge role. Some regions developed sophisticated governance structures, which had long-term benefits for things like infrastructure and healthcare. Other regions, organized around kinship, faced different challenges. But one thing is clear, Africa had its own economic trajectory long before colonialism. Then came the scramble for Africa. European powers carved up the continent, disrupting existing trade routes and imposing new economic systems. The focus shifted to extraction. Resources gold, diamonds, rubber, and more were shipped to Europe, often with little benefit for African communities. Colonial powers invested in infrastructure, but primarily to facilitate this extraction. Railways and ports were built to move resources out, not to connect African communities to each other. This fundamentally reshaped Africa's economic landscape. The effects were devastating. The average annual reduction in GDP per capita growth for affected countries was a staggering 2.5%. And the institutional damage was immense. In fact, institutional quality explains 40% of the growth variance between African countries from 1960 to 2020. Independence arrived in the mid-20th century, but the economic legacy of colonialism lingered. Many African nations remained dependent on exporting raw materials. They inherited weak infrastructure and institutions designed to serve colonial interests. The post-independence era saw a wave of ambitious development plans, often inspired by socialist or capitalist models. But many of these plans faltered, weighed down by corruption, political instability, and external debt. And that external debt became a crushing burden. Today, African countries face about 70 billion in annual debt service payments, equal to roughly 20% of their budgets. That's money that could be spent on education, healthcare, or infrastructure. Some countries experienced the resource curse. Angola and Nigeria, flush with oil wealth, saw their non-oil sectors shrink, a phenomenon known as Dutch disease. Instead of diversifying their economies, they became even more dependent on a single commodity. But the story doesn't end there. Today, Africa is a 3 trillion economy, with South Africa leading the way at nearly 400 billion. A new generation of African leaders is focused on diversification, intra-African trade, and building stronger institutions. The African Continental Free Trade Area, or AFCFTA, promises to boost trade within the continent, reducing dependence on external markets. UNCTAD's 2024 report emphasizes the interconnected shocks facing African economies: climate change, political instability, technological gaps, and external market dependence. These shocks reinforce each other, creating a complex web of challenges. But the report also offers solutions: stronger intra-African trade, transport and technology infrastructure investment, and better financial tools to reduce vulnerability. The focus is shifting from simply achieving growth to building resilient, diversified economies. Countries are investing in infrastructure to connect their nations and regions. They are embracing digital technologies to leapfrog traditional development pathways. And they are working to build stronger institutions to promote good governance and attract investment. The future of African economics depends on whether states can convert commodity wealth and demographic growth into productive capacity, rather than continued dependence on raw exports. The challenge is to escape the legacy of extraction and build economies that benefit all Africans. The choices made now will determine whether Africa can finally realize its vast economic potential. One thing is certain, the story of African economics is far from over. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and the ongoing struggle for economic independence. Are countries like Angola and Nigeria successfully diversifying away from oil,